Madam President, we note France's initiative, that is the initiative to request today's meeting following the intensification of hostilities in the Republic of Lebanon, a friend of the Russian Federation. We thank USG Rosemary DeCarlo and USG Jean-Pierre Lacroix for their briefings regarding worrying developments around the border area between Lebanon and Israel. Madam President, before our very eyes, there is an unprecedented escalation of violence in the Gaza Strip, and it's stretching far beyond the limits of the Palestine-Israeli conflict, destabilizing more and more countries in the Middle East. Today, the crisis has engulfed Beirut, and the heart-rending images of the bombing of Beirut have done the rounds all over the world. We're also receiving more and more evidence of the fact that Israel harbors arrogant contempt for the opinion of the international community, the UN, and the Security Council. Israel is choosing escalation over diplomacy. The unprecedented cyber attack, as a result of which thousands of innocents suffered, this was followed by mass strikes by Israeli aviation on south and central Lebanon. Next, despite calls for a ceasefire by some members of the international community and protestations of others, the IDF on the 1st of October launched its so-called limited land operation. At the same time, Hezbollah is returning fire on Israeli territory, attacking including sites deep within Israel, south of Haifa and near Tel Aviv. In the skies over South Lebanon, hundreds of reconnaissance and strike UAVs are operating day and night. Every hour, Israeli Air Force is conducting mass rocket and bomb strikes, targeting places where Hezbollah supposedly has deployed arms, fighters, commanders, and military and even civilian infrastructure of the Shia movement, including medical and media centers. The cynicism of these attacks is disheartening. Part of them are hitting densely populated neighborhoods in Beirut and other Lebanese cities. It would appear that West Jerusalem is not only flagrantly flouting the principles of international humanitarian law, but also viewing civilian losses as collateral damage. As we say in Russian, you can't chop wood without wood chips flying everywhere. During the 27th September bombing, as a result of which the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Mr. Nasrallah, was assassinated, 6 multi-story residential buildings and all of the people in them were reduced to a pile of rubble. Warnings addressed to the Lebanese about the need to evacuate this or that neighborhood or site are perfunctory. They cannot be executed. As a result, civilian losses are rising by the day, and civilian losses are many times greater than losses among the ranks of the Shia movement. We see no justification for further civilian victims, of which there are already several thousand. We stand in solidarity with the leadership and the people of the land of the Cedars, which has once again been subjected to Israel's military aggression, despite the fact that the land invasion of Lebanon has so far been circumscribed to a number of neighborhoods. Over 1 million people in South Lebanon have been forced to flee their homes and to become IDPs. Over 400,000 people managed to cross the border into Syria before the Israeli Air Force executed a targeted strike, destroying the road near the Masna border crossing, thereby blocking transport links between Beirut and Damascus. As far as we can tell, Israel has also conducted targeted strikes hitting UN peacekeepers. We all understand that this is a war crime and it deserves the most decisive reaction from all of us. Israel's military raids into Lebanese territory is resulting in fierce clashes with Hezbollah fighters, substantial losses on both parts, and Israeli pulling back to their initial positions. The forces are unequal. Israel has shown that it's ready to annihilate its opponent at any cost without any regard for civilian losses. In other words, the same scenario that we've seen in Gaza is now unfolding in Lebanon. Against this backdrop, the Security Council is paralyzed, and this is the US's fault. The Security Council, despite its mandate conferred by the UN Security Council, that is to maintain international peace and security, despite the fact that the Security Council has the necessary toolkit to stop the violence, is watching on silently, watching Israel's war machine systematically pushing the entire region closer to chaos. Discussions about the fate of the remaining Israeli hostages still held by Hamas have suddenly ceased, as have discussions about implementation of Security Council Resolution 2735, which endorsed, at the US's insistence, the so-called Biden deal. Our US colleagues are also less active on the Security Council. The US is nonetheless still blocking any attempts by Security Council members to adopt a decision that could help to achieve a ceasefire in the region. Israel is now going all in, despite its bitter experience of the 2006 campaign. Its US accomplices are compelled to do the same, to be guided by the principle of all or nothing. And in fact, the US's actions are circumscribed by the fast-approaching election. Now, it's clear what's going on here. The only question is, what should the Security Council do under these circumstances? We don't know about colleagues, but we remain convinced that an urgent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip is the main thing the Security Council should be pursuing. It should be followed by the de-escalation of the military and political situation, both in Lebanon and in the Middle East as a whole. We unswervingly maintain that it is only by addressing this cornerstone problem, that is the Palestinian issue, that we down the line can launch the comprehensive political settlement within the international legal framework, which is known to all. That's the only way to secure a sustainable and lasting peace in the Middle East. We demand a full and comprehensive implementation of Resolution 1701, which sets out Israel's obligations, that is to cease all offensive military operations, to withdraw its armed forces from southern Lebanon, and to cease the occupation of Lebanese territory. It also contains obligations for Hezbollah to withdraw its divisions from the north of to the north of the Litani River. We fully support the UN interim force in Lebanon. We underscore the need to unswervingly ensure the security of peacekeepers, which are being subjected to unpredictable risks due to Israel's presence on the blue line. To tackle all of these issues, Russia stands ready to harness the entire and substantial arsenal of measures and means at the Security Council's disposal. We know what we will do, yet we're not so sure about certain colleagues on the Council. For some, they're trying to avoid putting their US ally in an uncomfortable position, and this is trumping all other considerations. The maximum that they're prepared to do is to deliver fine but empty speeches here in this chamber. Against this backdrop, on our side, we will continue making diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the situation and to prevent a catastrophic scenario for the entire Middle East. On the 3rd of October, the Russian Federation sent a humanitarian consignment to Beirut. We see many colleagues are doing the same. Nonetheless, humanitarian efforts clearly aren't enough, given that Israel and the US are pouring fuel on the flames of the most destructive escalation in the Middle East. They are impertinently violating international law and the UN Charter. And yet some, at the same time, are holding the Council hostage, having cast the veto 5 times to defend Israel's interests, and at the same time cynically ascribing the Security Council's ineffectiveness with the need to reform the Council. The Council's effectiveness is in our collective hands. It is within our reach to be effective. We can do this right now. We stand ready to work with everyone for whom the UN Charter and international law